Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone is doing well today. Thanks a lot for tuning in as always. Shout out to all the subscribers and gratitude to anyone new. I am not in my normal setup right now. I'm in my mum's lounge, so bear with me. I've got, basically I like to try to make each video a little bit more professional than this, but it is what it is. We got to roll with the punches. Let's talk about this fight. First of all, congratulations to Sebastian Fundora. He's the new unified champion. Very fortunate, let's be honest. He was fortunate. I guess it favored him in the lead up, given the pullout. He was training for Boachuk, who is not too dissimilar in the sense that he's a pressure fighter, comes forward and he's an orthodox, and Tszyu is more technical, I think, and I think he's a better fighter. But in terms of styles, that certainly favored Fundora. But it's not his fault. And then in the middle of the fight, that wasn't his fault either. If you actually look at the accident that happened, Tszyu tripped over the leg of Fundora, which was a southpaw orthodox clash. And I know some people online were saying Tszyu threw his head into his elbow. I know some of the clips, it does look like that, but if you look closely at the actual legs where they meet, there was just a clash of, and that tends to happen with the foot, with the clashing of the feet. So it was just a bizarre accidental lunge into Fundora's elbow, created a massive cut. But let's start from the beginning, because obviously rounds 1 and 2 were very dominant from Tszyu, busting up Fundora's nose and landing clean, hard right hands, repeatedly, with relative ease. Like I mentioned pre-fight, and thanks to anybody that watched that, I mentioned pre-fight that the jab, Fundora's jab is pretty good sometimes, but it's inconsistent. And would he be able to keep it up? And would he be able to fight long enough? And I think the answer was no, based on the first 2 rounds, because Tszyu was timing that jab and coming either like just coming over the top of it after it wasn't pulled back to his chin, and he brings his jab back to his chest, and Tszyu was landing those clean right hands either over the top or to the side. When Tszyu was, I thought Tszyu was going to use the high guard, but he was using this long guard, and it was quite interesting because he was parrying down that lead jab. It always becomes like a jousting situation against the southpaw, and he was able to, I think he was able to control Fundora nicely with it. And he does this thing of leaning back a little bit, which I think could hinder him at some point, just because when you do lean back like that, you don't really have anywhere else to go. And he did get caught with a few left hands. But it looked like that's the kind of fight, not necessarily I thought, because I thought it'd be more, I didn't think Fundora would just be so disciplined straight up. I thought he'd get sucked into a bit of a fight on the inside, and credit to him, he was able to stick that jab for the whole fight, which is what won him the fight. But let's be honest, that cut didn't happen, I think he would have got stopped, Fundora. We'll never know. Well, unless we get a rematch, which I'll talk about that at the end of the video. But it did look like the writing was on the wall for me. It was just some clinical, clean boxing from Tszyu early, and Fundora was really lacking the conviction with that backhand to keep some sort of respect there. So it's like having the door like open a little bit. You're just gonna walk through it. And there was not the jab. The jab was good-ish, but it was inconsistent. And Tszyu was finding his range with that right hand. I think he landed a left hook as well. Then the accident happened, right, at the end of the second. Then, right, you've got there's a lot of people saying that his team let him down with the corner work. And I was watching an interview with Stitch Duran, who's a famous Stitch guy, or a well-known Stitch guy that does a lot. He's a very cool dude, actually. If you watch his interview, I really like him. And he was just respectfully saying there was some stuff that the team were doing that was very I guess amateurish is the wrong word, but not professional, in terms of preparation with the something called adrenaline, which is what you put on cuts. And the order of it, and the Vaseline, and I'll leave the link in that. It's on a channel called Mill City Boxing, and it's really interesting because he breaks down what should have happened and what you could have prepared. But another thing is, what would you do, right? If you were the team, you have an option, if you like, in terms of the rules, anything past the 4th round, right? As soon as the 5th round starts, then you would have to go to the scorecards if the fight was to get stopped from a cut or a headbutt and stuff like that. But if you do it before that, it becomes a no contest, right? Which many people are saying that's what the corner should have done. Now, I don't disagree with that. You'd have to think on your feet quickly to get that done. But in terms of a high-level fight like that from a high-level fighter, you probably expect a high-level decision. Easier said than done. You know, I'm not in that position, of course. I wasn't thinking that at the time watching it, you know, without all the drama, without having to deal with his cut, without having to believe in your fighter too, in some weird kind of warrior way, you know, where they thinking, well, you know, I believe in him. I think the way the fight was going, we can manage the cut and he can get the knockout. But you probably would guarantee yourself more of a rematch in a better situation with more of a preparation if you were to just pull the fight then. But again, that would have been a pretty astute call. It would have been the right thing, I think, but it would have been like, that was a great call. But because they didn't do it, it's now not the greatest. So then you're left with a situation with, once the 5th round starts, and you get deeper into the fight and Tim starts losing those rounds, or sorry, after, because the 3rd he was getting hit quite a bit and he couldn't see, you know, at the end of the day. And I know Fundora had his own issues too. He had I think he had a broken nose in the 1st or 2nd round. So look, credit to both these guys. I'm going to talk about their spirit because this is something that I'm just enamored by. You know, both these fighters are true warriors, and Tszyu especially, because I think he was having more to deal with and he just proved to me exactly who he is. And even if not, I think he's got a higher ceiling than I actually thought in the beginning, which, you know, I was just amazed at how he was able to do what he did in spite of a loss. Yeah, he might have lost that battle, but his war is for greatness, and I'll touch on that in a minute because it's something that you know, I want to drill home about both these fighters. You know, boxing needs more fighters like this because he got the best out of himself. They both got the best out of themselves, and you got preparation in the fight. You know, they just did the best they possibly could. And you know, as I keep saying, if every boxer was to do that, imagine how great the sport would be. So anyway, you know, Fundora did what he had to do. He kept the jab long, and he kept a disciplined fight, and he used his brain and he used his mind, and that is what wins fights. And you know, it was hard to score for me because I said I haven't watched the full rounds entirely, but there were a couple of rounds in there that did look, from what I was seeing, that Tszyu definitely won. I think it was the 6th and the 10th, and you know, the fact he was able to hang in there like that and fight how he was fighting with losing all that blood was quite remarkable. But I did look like Fundora did win, you know, probably like, I want to say maybe like 7 or 8 rounds to 4, probably 8 rounds to 4 Fundora, maybe 7-5, something like that. But it's okay, do you know what I mean? Given the circumstances, I don't really see it as too much of a big deal because you know, there's a major asterisk there. And at the end of the day, you lose a battle. All conquerors and emperors and, you know, generals lose battles, but the war it's going to only make him more battle tested. It's going to only make him more determined. I'm talking about Tszyu here. Only make him more willing and able to just know what he just went through. Hopefully he didn't take any psychological damage. It doesn't seem like it because he's just an absolute warrior. And he'll be back. He will be back. So if there's any disappointed Tszyu fans, I would say don't worry about a thing. He's exactly who, you know, well, I say not exactly. He's more than what I thought. I knew he was capable. I knew he had a lot of heart, but sometimes, you know, going through that, I mean, goodness me. You know, there's a lot of fighters loads of fighters that don't even try to win. You know, they get touched up with some shots and they don't try to win. He was trying to win with, and he was letting it hang out a little bit in the 3rd. He was really like, had that kind of desperation. And I was like, man, I love that. Trying to win in those circumstances. That's a real warrior, you know. So, you know, that was just incredible to see. And it was incredible to see both these guys really let it hang out in those circumstances, in that bloody mess. You know, so again, I'd love to decipher the fight a bit more technically, but I can't really speak on some of the mid rounds because it was just the highlights for like a, you know, it's quite hard to find couldn't find a full fight of it. So, but there's, you know, obviously with the post-fight stuff and the moving parts with what happens next, there's a lot of possibilities. I know Spence was in the ring. A lot of people saying, well, he doesn't deserve it. Absolutely not. And what doesn't seem to be happening right now is the fact that, you know, the winners fight the winners. You know, like what probably should happen. I would love to see an immediate rematch personally. But at the very least, you know, like I think, you know, Fundora's going to fight Bud. He was the mandatory. I think I wouldn't have a major problem with that. I would like to see Tszyu fight Fundora in an immediate rematch. But if he fought Spence and then Fundora fought Bud and the winner of those, I wouldn't have an issue with that. That's, you know, that's what you deserve, basically. And I would probably favour Tszyu against Spence, to be honest with you, slightly. I mean, there's a lot of question marks about Errol Spence's health, his neurological state, you know. He's just coming off a major loss himself. But look, Fundora just proved, again, you know, coming off a brutal, I mean, he got knocked out way. I mean, it's actually a different situation between him and Spence's loss. He got beaten up for, was it 7 rounds, dropped several times, then stopped. I mean, it's hard to say which one was worse, because a brutal, complete KO like the Fundora one is probably damaging in a different way. I don't know which one's worse, but you could make an argument for both. But what I'm saying is, I think Spence will probably be all right because they're both warriors. Do you know what I mean? But I don't know what kind of shape Spence is in terms of, like I said, all the other stuff going on leading up to the Bud fight. But I think it's a great fight, and I think 154 is going to be a really great division. I think there's so many great fights in there if we can get these fights made. And, you know, I think people are suggesting maybe they're worried that the PBC are going to hold up the belts and Tszyu won't get his opportunity. Look, at the end of the day, he will get an opportunity at some point, because he's not the kind of person that's going to stop. This is what I love about him, you know. I've got so much admiration for that, because he's going to find a way at some point to go, if it's the long way round. And this is what I wanted to say, and I'll finish on this because it's quite been a long video, 12 minutes already. But the path of a warrior is a challenging one, right? And they're both warriors. All 4 of these guys are warriors, right? But Tszyu, the path of a warrior, and a great warrior gets dealt a tougher path, okay? Tougher path, given a last minute, you know, last week, 2 weeks, 6'6" southpaw opponent like Fundora that can handle himself a bit. Then with the cut, you know, these are all tough paths that were unfortunate, but it's all part of his journey, you know? His journey's for greatness, and it's a battle that he lost under the circumstances, but the journey and the path is greatness. He'll be all right. So whatever way he gets to greatness, however fair or unfair, he will get there. And you know, I really respect that, and I've got even more admiration for him and these fighters. You know, hopefully they all get in the ring and fight each other. And you know, if the belts get held up, so what? A belt is a belt. He already had the belt, but greatness is how much far higher of a ceiling is that? So we'll see. You know, I know politics in boxing always messes things up, but we just got to focus on you know, the future. And look, in terms of Sebastian Fundora as well, massive respect to him. They've got so much respect as well. There's a lot of gentlemanly back and forth. I love to see that. I like seeing that with the Mendoza Tszyu situation. You know, there's a few gentlemen in the sport, and you know, when they act like gentlemen and true warriors, we have to highlight that, and I do, because it means a lot to me seeing those guys behave in that kind of manner. You got to give respect to Fundora. He did what he had to do under the circumstances, and it wasn't his fault. So I'd love to see a rematch. Let me know what you guys think. Apologies for the lateness on this video and the quality of this, but you know, I had to catch a flight as soon as I got finished working, basically, so I didn't really have much time. So I'll be back in New York in a few days, and I've got a ton of videos coming. And, you know, I'm grateful for anyone that's watched and appreciative of your time. Thanks a lot. I hope you have a great week. See you later.